All right, good afternoon, sir. This is Mr. Dykes?
Yes, sir.
Good deal. Come on right here, please.
Yes, sir.
Before you're seated, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the evidence you're going to provide in the hearing of this case is going to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you so much. Please be seated right there. Ms. Hart will undertake your direct testimony.
Can you first introduce yourself to this jury?
I'm James Heath Dykes.
How are you currently employed?
I work for the Perry Police Department.
How long have you worked for the Perry Police Department?
29 years and 6 months.
What is your current job assignment with the Perry Police Department?
I run the Criminal Investigative Division.
And I want to take you back to 2005. Did you know someone by the name of Tara Grinstead?
I did.
And how do you know Tara Grinstead?
We grew up together in the same town, Hawkinsville.
Were you same age?
She's 4.5, 5 years younger than I am.
After high school, did you ever see Tara again?
I did.
And when was it that you first got to know Tara after high school?
When I was at Georgia Southern, I talked to her several times during that time.
Okay. Was there ever an occasion in which your relationship with her went beyond friend?
Yes.
And when did that occur?
2005, 2004.
How long before she went missing do you believe that your relationship had escalated?
How many months?
Months, years, whatever it is.
It's around 8 months, I think.
Now, prior to that, had you been in contact with her on a regular basis before the relationship became more than friends?
Excuse me?
Were you in contact on a regular basis prior to those 8 months before?
Oh, yes, yes.
And go ahead and ask you, were you married in 2005 when your relationship turned to a sexual nature?
Yes.
During that time period when you were involved in a romantic relationship with Miss Grinstead, how often would you see her?
Maybe twice a month. It was.
How often did you speak with her?
We spoke daily.
And in 2005, what different phones would you have had access to?
I had a cell phone.
Would that have been a personal cell phone or a work phone, or do you recall?
Yes, a cell phone. It's a work.
Work cell phone.
Correct.
Do you recall if you had a personal cell phone?
I did not back then.
Did you have a house phone at the time?
I did.
And I know we're talking about a number of years ago, but do you recall what your house phone would have been at the time? The number?
478-988-3026.
Okay. Very good. What about your cell phone back then? Do you recall what that number would have been? If you don't, it's okay.
I don't. I think it's a 338 number. I think, but I might be wrong.
And then, what about your office? Would you have had a office phone?
I do.
And again, what department was that you worked for?
Perry Police Department, Investigative Division.
Do you know what the number would have been there?
My direct line is 988-2822.
Speak up just a little bit, please, Mr. Dykes.
My direct line is 988-2822.
And what would have been the area code for that?
478.
Did you ever communicate with Tara on your cell phone?
Yes.
Do you recall if you ever spoke or called her from your house phone?
Yes.
And then what about the number at your work? Do you recall if you ever spoke with her or called her from that number?
Yes.
Now, I know it's been a long time, but do you recall how long it had been since you saw Tara prior to her going missing?
It was the Wednesday, the 19th of October.
And do you recall when it was that she went missing?
Well, it had to been Saturday night sometime, which would have been the 22nd.
Okay. Now I want to direct your attention back to that Saturday. Did you speak with her on that date?
I did.
How many times did you speak with her?
I know of 2.
And was that on your phone, text, and what way did you speak with her?
Cell phone.
Cell phone. Did Tara have a cell phone?
Yes.
Did Tara have a house phone?
Yes,
At the time, did you have both of those numbers as well?
I did.
Was it unusual that you might communicate with her on both of those numbers?
Yes.
It was unusual or it was not?
It's not unusual. No,
Okay.
it's not unusual.
Did there come a time in which you were unable to get in touch with Tara?
Yes.
And what was the day of the week, at least, that occurred?
That was Sunday morning.
When you had last spoken with Tara, had you had plans at that point to see her?
We had talked about it the night prior,
Okay.
and I said if I could work it out, I would try to see her Sunday.
And when you say you would try to see her Sunday, was there a plan for where that would occur, that meeting would occur?
Well, I would just have called her and we'd have met up.
So would it have taken place at her house, your house, somewhere else?
Probably her house.
Her house. How far was the drive from your residence to her house back then?
Hour 25 minutes.
And what about from your work to her house?
About the same.
So tell us what you were doing Sunday morning and how that day played out, please.
When I got up Sunday morning, actually, I went deer hunting with a couple of friends, got back to the house. My kids had a fall festival at their school.
Yes, sir.
And we went to the Centerville Elementary School where we went to fall festival. After we left there, we grabbed something to eat, I think at Larry's Subs. From there, I was in contact with a guy I was supposed to go deer hunting with that afternoon, and told him that I was going to be hunting in Hawkinsville that afternoon, and basically went by a friend of mine's house in Hawkinsville, Mr. Cootie, and visited with him up till the time I went deer hunting.
Okay. During this time period, did you attempt to reach Tara?
Several times.
Did she ever answer?
Never.
When she did not answer, what did you do, if anything?
I left a message on her house phone.
Into Saturday night, Sunday, did you ever speak with Tara's mother, Faye Grinstead?
I did.
How did you know Miss Faye?
She worked for my dad and grew up just, Hawkinsville's small like this town. Everybody knows everybody.
Okay. Now, to your knowledge, did Miss Faye know about your relationship with Tara?
I'm not 100% sure she knew the extent of it. She knew we were really close and real good friends.
Okay. Do you recall if you spoke with Miss Faye on Saturday?
No, I didn't spoke. I don't remember speaking to her on Saturday.
What about on Sunday?
Yes.
Now, Saturday evening, specifically, I think I may have asked you this, but I want to be clear. Were you and Tara ever able to actually speak on the phone? Saturday night.
Saturday night, yes.
Okay. And then on Sunday, do you recall when it is that you would have spoken with Miss Faye?
It was late into the evening. She called me.
Okay. And after speaking with Miss Faye, did you do anything?
Yes, I decided to go down to Tara's house to see if I could find her.
At this point, would you say you had left a number of messages for Tara?
Oh yeah, a bunch.
Was it usual that she would not call you back or respond to your messages?
No.
Why did you drive to Tara's residence that night?
Because I was worried about something was wrong. I just knew it wasn't like her character to not respond, not answer.
Okay.
just completely go.
When you spoke with her on I apologize, did I interrupt you?
No, ma'am.
When you spoke with her on Saturday, what was her demeanor?
She was kind of down. She was, I don't know, kind of sad. And I tried to, talk to her and cheer her up.
Yes.
Try to be funny with her. And basically, when we hung up the phone, about 5 or 6 seconds later, after we hung up, I called her right back, and she answered the phone, and she seemed to be in a better mood then, and so.
Did you have any reason to think that? Did y'all have a fight or an argument on Saturday?
No.
When you went to Tara's house, what did you do, if anything, on Sunday?
I pulled up in the driveway, and it was late, probably around 12 a.m. I called Miss Fay and told her I was there, and that I went to the front door, knocked on the door several times, walked around. The dog was barking.
Yes, sir.
She had a dog named Dolly. It was barking. I walked around to the fence and patted it, calmed down. And I walked back over to the carport where a car was, and I put my hand on top of the car to see if it was warm, and it was cold.
Yes, sir.
I tapped on the window up there, trying to see if, put my knuckles and hit the window to see if, somebody would hear me.
Which window would that have been?
I'm gonna be honest with you, I think it's the front one. That I could see some ambient light in there, like a computer screen.
Yes, sir.
Was lit up, like a screensaver was lit up, and I could see the ambient light in there, but that's all you could see. It was very dim.
Yes, sir.
And I just banged on it, trying to get somebody to come to the door. And I called Miss Fay. At that point, I called Miss Fay after exhausting all attempts to try to, make contact with her.
Yes, sir.
And I asked her what she wanted me to do. She had a neighbor by the name of, she called him Mr. Joe. I don't know his last name, Fortier or something.
Fine.
Anyway, I asked Miss Fay at that point, did you want me to go over to Mr. Joe's house and see if he knows anything, if he's heard from her? And she told me no, it was too late, that she would contact Mr. Joe in the morning and have her check on Tara.
When you were at Tara's house outside, do you recall if you actually called her home phone as well, trying to get her to answer?
I'm sure I did. And I left a business card. I took my business card out of my car, and I put a note on the back of it, and I stuck it on the door, put it in the wedge of the door.
Showing Causey Council of the United States Exhibits 40, 41, and 42.
Sure.
Let me show you first what's been marked as States Exhibit 40 and ask you if you recognize that.
I do.
How do you recognize States 40?
That's the house that Tara Grinstead lived in.
And is that a true and accurate depiction of what that residence would have looked like back in October of 2005?
It is.
Now I'm going to show you States Exhibit 41 and ask you, do you recognize the area depicted in States 41?
I do.
And what do you recognize that area to be?
The little walkway going up to the...
Okay. I know I'm close to you, so you're talking low, but I need you to talk a little bit louder for me. What is that?
The little walkway going up to the front door.
Okay. Now, specifically, the item that I'm pointing to in States 41, do you ever recall seeing that item?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We're having mic problems all day today.
All right. No, ma'am, I do not.
Okay, and then I'm going to show you a closer-up of that, States 42, and again, ask you that question, do you ever recall seeing that specific item before, States 42?
I do not.
As it relates to States 41, other than the item that I've just pointed to, does that appear to be a true and accurate depiction of what her yard would have looked like back in October of 2005?
It does.
Your Honor, this time I would tender in evidence States Exhibits 40 and 41.
Any objection or board aye? Thank you, Mr. Merchant. 40 and 41 are admitted without objection.
And then I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 43. And you can take that out if you need to, take a look at it. But can you tell me if you recognize what's in States 43?
That's my business card.
And that particular business card, is there any writing on it?
It is.
And whose writing was that?
It's mine.
Okay. Does that appear to be the business card that you left in Tara's door back in October of 2005, the evening you were unable to reach her?
It is.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time I would tender in evidence States Exhibit 43.
Merchant, any objection? That's admitted without objection. Thank you.
Can I publish those to the jury?
That'll be fine. Ms. Watkins, if you'll help us with our screen, thank you. You gonna put it on there?
I'm gonna try this.
All right, good. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, y'all seen that image on your screen? Thank you.
Okay. Do you see that image as well, sir?
I do.
Okay. Let me see if I can. For some reason, it's crooked. Can you tell the jury what we're looking at there?
That's Tara Grinstead's house.
And again, here, the vehicle that we see, do you recognize that vehicle?
I do.
Whose vehicle was that?
Tara Grinstead's.
Okay. And had you specifically seen Tara driving that vehicle before?
Yes.
Now, the window that you said, or excuse me, the door that you said you knocked on that evening, do we see that door in this picture?
We do.
Would that be this door that's it's open in the picture?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then, do you recall, I think you said you went over in the back to see Dolly, the dog. Which way would you have gone to see Dolly?
Looking at the picture to the left on the other side of the car.
So this way?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, do you know which side of the residence Tara's bedroom was on?
Would be on the right side.
So over here?
Correct.
These windows that we see here, and again, I know it's been a while, but do you recall what room those windows went to?
I think it's her bedroom.
Okay. And do you know if there were any windows on the other side of the house as well? There weren't, or you don't know?
I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. Now, you talked about knocking on some windows that evening. Do you see the window that you would have knocked on that evening in this particular picture?
I believe it's the front one for the far left.
The front to the
three,
far...
the three windows you see in a row on the far left.
Here?
Correct. That one that you got your finger on.
Sorry, it's upside down for me, so that
Okay.
my left and right are different. Okay, so these windows right here?
Yes, ma'am.
And what room do you believe those go into in the house?
That's the den area.
Okay. Do you recall if you walked around, in addition to walking in the back to see Dolly, do you recall if you walked around anywhere else in the residence?
In the carport there.
Okay. Now, do you know if there was another entrance to the residence in the carport here?
There was.
Did you ever know Tara to use that residence? That entrance?
I did.
And do you recall if it was actually blocked off on the inside or not?
I think it was. I never went in that area, but I think it was like maybe a laundry room or something was in that area. But there, I did knock on that door as well.
Now, I'm going to show you what's been marked as
That we were just looking at?
Exhibit 40.
All right, thank you.
Exhibit 41, and again, we indicated when we were talking earlier, this particular item that I'm pointing at, have you ever seen that item before, the one that's exhibited in States 41?
I have not.
Okay. However, this area, what is that depicting?
Like a little walkway going up to her front door.
Okay. Specifically, these steps, would they have approached or gone away from the front door?
I think they're going out towards the driveway, I believe is how it went.
Okay. And then the opposite direction, would they have gone toward the door?
Correct.
Okay. When you approached the door that evening, this particular item that we see in the straw, would that have been in front of you or behind you?
Behind me.
Okay. And what time of day or night was it that you were out there?
12 midnight.
Okay. Did you have a flashlight out?
No.
Did you, I know we're talking about days where cell phones probably didn't have lights on them, but did you ever recall using any light to be able to see the yard that evening?
No, I just.
Were you looking for anything specifically in the yard that night?
No, I just focused mainly on the house and knocking on the door and seeing if someone's home.
Do you have any way of telling this jury whether this item in States 41 was there the night that you were at her house? Do you have any way of knowing if it was or was not there?
I don't have any way.
Do you have any way of knowing?
No.
You don't have any way of knowing?
I don't know if it was there or not.
And then State's Exhibit. Sorry.
I'm good. Thank you.
This is exhibit number 43. Again, can you tell the jury what they're looking at? Exhibit number 43.
That's my business card
Okay.
with my cell phone number on it.
And where did you leave this particular business card?
In the door, front door.
Did Tara have your cell phone number?
She did.
Then why would you have left your cell phone number on there?
I don't know.
As law enforcement, when you're leaving your card in somebody's door, do you generally leave your cell phone number on it?
I do, and what I'm thinking is probably already, I probably pre-wrote it on there on my business cards because I do, in my job, I do what is called neighborhood canvasses, and I go out and I leave my cards on people's doors. So I probably just wrote it on there, and it was just one of my cards that had my number written on it.
Okay. And I know earlier you weren't positive about what your cell phone number was back in 2005, but looking at this particular number, with that, you said that would have been your cell phone number at the time?
That's it.
I'm going to do this portion. Okay. Have you ever had an occasion to hear the messages that you left on Tara's home phone back in October 2005?
I have.
Show a crazy council by marking a States Exhibit 200. Now, first, I'm going to show you what I've marked as States Exhibit 200 and ask you if you recognize that.
I do. It's the CD with the phone messages and I reviewed it on 8/2/2021 in your office in Tip,
Now, how do you know that specific CD is the one that you reviewed in my office?
because I initialed it.
And having had a chance to listen to that recording, do you recall if other persons had left messages on the cell or on her home phone as well?
I think there was a few messages from other people.
Okay. What about Faye Grinstead? Did you know her voice?
I do.
Okay. And if you were to hear Miss Faye Grinstead's voice, would you know it?
Yes.
Do you recall whether or not Miss Faye's voice is on these recordings leaving messages for her daughter?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time I would tender an evidence State's Exhibit 20.
Any objection, Mr. Murphy?
Okay.
No objection. That's it.
The purposes of the record, though, since it contains multiple statements, we need to clarify what's.
All right, you don't object to, I'm assuming Mr. Dykes or Ms. Faye Grinstead's messages, is that correct? All right.
And Your
Anything
Honor,
further?
as you can tell, I skipped to number 200. I wasn't going to play it with him, and I decided I would. I'm only going to play a portion of it now. The remainder will be played with the investigators who recorded it.
All right. You intend to play his messages now, is that
Some of his
correct?
messages, not all of them.
Okay,
I just want him to be able to identify if that's his voice, Judge.
I'll be fine.
While she's getting that ready for me, did you know a gentleman by the name of Jim Hickey?
I did.
Okay. How did you know Mr. Hickey?
I don't personally know him. I just knew him of Tara mentioning him.
Thank you.
You have one new message and 28 old messages. Monday, 10:19 a.m.
Hey, this is
And Judge, I'm going to fast forward. This is kind of, it'll make sense later, but I'm going to fast forward through that. This did start over.
Friday, 5:47 p.m.
Hey Sarah, this is Connie Griffin.
Sunday, 6:23 p.m. Sunday, 6:26 p.m. At that meeting there, we next time you can marry it, you're okay. It's just forward or something. Okay.
Paul, obviously with the feedback we're having today, it's very difficult to hear, but were you able to hear the voice on that audio?
Sound like yes,
Okay. And did you recognize that voice?
it's my voice.
And you were about to say it sounds like something. Are you able to make out what you were saying in that?
I think you could at least page me.
Okay. What did you mean by that?
Page me with a pager back in
So for those who may not know what a pager is in our jury, can you explain what that is?
back before cell phones were an item. We had pagers and we were on call, and you could page the number and it'd beep. Basically, it just looked a little square pager.
Okay.
It just-
And did you have a pager back then?
I did.
Did Sarah have your pager number?
She did.
Okay, I'm gonna restart it, and that's at 5:38, sorry.
Sunday, 7:34 p.m. Okay. not tomorrow all day. Will you let me hear from me?
The person that we just heard, did you recognize that voice?
I did.
And who did you recognize that person to be?
It's me.
And were you able to make out what you were saying? That was a little more audible.
I just was pleading with her to call me and let me know she's okay.
I am skipping forward. It's starting at 15:03.
I want to talk to you. You take me home. Heard you not answer the phone. I want to talk to you. Pick up. Please call me. Sunday, 10:11 p.m. It's me.
I'm going to pause it there at 15:51. Again, whose voice was that we just heard on the message?
It was mine.
And we're able to hear a sound, actually two sounds in that. Were you able to hear two sounds that were not your voice?
Yes.
Okay. What was the first sound, or what did you hear that stood out to you?
Me knocking on the door.
Okay. And then what else did you hear?
Dog barking.
Would that, whose dog would that have been?
Terrors.
At this point then, would you have been at her house?
Yes.
I'm going to restart that at 15:51.
Sunday, 11:44 p.m. I drove all the way down here, 12 o'clock at night. And it just came on into the different stuff up here. That's very different center community. Monday, 12:04 a.m. Monday, 12:27 a.m.
Terrence, get this message, could you please call me back? I'm trying to call you all afternoon and all night, and I haven't been able to understand something on this word. Please give me a call, thanks.
The message we just heard from 12:27 a.m., do you recognize that voice?
I do.
And who do you recognize that voice to be?
Miss Faye Grinstead.
Restarting.
Monday, 12:28 a.m. Hey, Cass. Worried about you. I called your mama now. She said she can't get hold of you either. If you just let me know you're all right, I appreciate it. You know, just tell me you're okay. If you don't want to talk, that's fine. Let me know you're okay. All right. Get this message, call me. Thank you, Pop. Monday, 12:45 a.m. Monday, 12:58 a.m. Morning, my last message I'm waiting. I want you to call and let me know you're okay. I got the phone with you there. Call me. Bye. Monday, 7:19 a.m. 10:30 a.m. anyway. Will you let me know you're all right?
The horse is up right now, so I'll stop it
No.
And without telling me what anyone told you, did there come a time when you became aware that law enforcement was involved in this case?
Yes.
And how did you become aware of who told you that? I don't want to go into detail of what they said, but who was it that let you know law enforcement had been called?
Well, I called Miss Faye the next morning to see if she showed up for school, and Miss Faye said she had not shown up, and that Joe and a teacher were going to go over to the house and check the house for her. And I told her to go ahead and contact the local law enforcement agency and let them know she needed to file a missing person report, that, she wouldn't have missed school and not called in. So at that point in time, I knew it wasn't good.
What did you do, if anything, at that point?
I waited on Miss Faye to call me back. She called me and told me that they had gone in the house and she wasn't in there.
Yes, sir.
And at that point in time, I took off work, and I called the local GBI office, Gary Rothwell, which was at the SAC at the time, and told him what was going on, and didn't know if they had requested their assistance yet, but that, I felt that it needed their attention.
Okay. Did you actually come to Ocilla?
I did.
And did you wind up speaking with Gary Rothwell as well as other agents that day?
I did.
Were you forthright about the kind of relationship you had with Miss Grinstead when you spoke with GBI agents?
I did.
Were you cooperative in the investigation?
I was.
Through the course of this investigation, essentially until February of 2017, did you consider yourself to be a person of interest by the GBI?
I think I was. I felt like I was being.
And do you know how many times you were questioned by the GBI?
No.
Do you recall if the GBI took any of your devices, such as your work computer or anything of that nature, for evidence?
I turned it over to them, my workstation at work, laptop, and cell phone.
And I want to direct your attention back to a date prior to what we've just heard, when Miss Grinstead had gone missing. Do you recall a time where you were at at Miss Grinstead's residence and someone else came?
Yes.
And do you recall how long that was before she went missing that weekend?
No, ma'am.
Do you think it would have been more recent or further away in time? If you don't know, it's okay,
I would say a couple months, maybe.
Where were you when the person came to Miss Grinstead's door that day?
I was coming back from Valdosta, dropping off evidence to the crime lab down there, and she had called me and we talked, and she asked me to come by her residence. So I got off the interstate and I went by her residence and walked in, started towards the kitchen, pulled the chair out at the kitchen table and sat down, and immediately, as soon as I sat down, somebody started banging on the door.
Okay. Did you go to the door?
No.
Did Tara go to the door?
She did.
And when Tara went to the door, could you hear what was going on outside?
Yes. Well, she looked out the window first to see who it was, and she said, "Oh my God." And I said, "What is it?" And she said, "It's that crazy Anthony."
Okay. Prior to that date, had you ever heard of anybody named Anthony?
Didn't have a clue who he was.
And other than the things that she said to you about him that date, did you ever talk to her about him again?
No.
Were you able to hear anything that actually was said between the two of them outside?
He was screaming, "Please talk to me, please talk to me. Please come outside and talk to me." And he was like in a panic, like some emergency or something.
Do you have any personal knowledge as to whether or not Tara Grinstead was having a romantic relationship with Anthony Vickers?
I do not.
Did you ever actually speak with Mr. Vickers that day?
No. I came to the door, and he started, seeing my presence seemed to agitate him. And he started, using profane language towards me and cussing, and Tara said, just go back in. It's not, not going to help anything. And I saw the local law enforcement pull up. I don't know who called him. Somebody called him. He was out there screaming and hollering at her. And I said, well, you need to come back in because I don't know what this guy's problem is, but he seems out of control. I don't want you to get hurt. And she says, I got it. And they came up, and he lit right into them as soon as they came up. And I told her, I said, let me know if they need to talk to me. I can tell them what I witnessed.
Yes, sir. On that particular evening, did you give a statement to law enforcement?
They never came in. He was arrested, and they left.
Okay. Did you ever give a statement to law enforcement about that incident?
I did.
Was that before or after she went missing?
Before.
Okay. Did you ever have any further conversations with Ms. Grinstead about the person Anthony Vickers?
Oh yeah, I was curious what all that was about.
Okay. Now, did you know of someone by the name of Marcus Harper?
I did.
And how did you know about Marcus Harper? Or what did you know about him?
I just knew it was an ex-boyfriend of Tara's that was in the military. That's basically it.
Okay. To your knowledge, at the time that she went missing, what was the status of their relationship?
I think they were broke up. I'm pretty sure they were.
Have you ever, are you aware of any incident that took place a few weeks before Tara was murdered in which she became emotional about Marcus?
She told me about an incident where he accused her of reading his emails.
Okay.
And she was distraught about it, and she really didn't elaborate a whole lot on it other than it scared her and she was real upset.
Through the course of this investigation, were you asked to provide a sample of your DNA?
I was.
And did you agree to provide a sample of your DNA?
I did.
Showing opposing counsel on Mark State's Exhibit 201. I'm going to show you what Mark State's Exhibit 201. Ask you to take a look at that for me, please. Do you recognize States 201?
I do.
And how do you recognize States 201?
It's a consent waiver to get saliva.
And is that a true and accurate copy of the consent waiver that you signed in this case?
Yes, it is.
Now, at this time, I will tender it at States Exhibit 201.
All right, any objection to board action 201? Thank you, Mr. Merchant. That's submitted without objection. States 201.
May I publish that to the jury, Judge?
Yes.
Looking at States 201, the signature that we see here, whose signature is that?
That's my signature.
And do you recall, or does this indicate to us who actually collected your DNA sample that day?
Bill Botry with a GBI.
No, I was going to say, did you know Bill Baudry before this date?
I knew who he was.
Did you know any of the other agents or law enforcement who investigated this case?
Yes.
And looking at this particular waiver, can you tell us what was the nature of the investigation that was ongoing as of November of 2005?
Missing person.
Now, for our jurors who may not be familiar with how DNA samples are generally collected, in addition consented to having your DNA collected, have you ever collected DNA from persons in your job?
Yes.
And what is the method by which we normally collect DNA for testing?
It's a cotton swab, and we swab the mouth area, around the cheeks, tongue area.
And is that what occurred in this case when you gave your sample?
Yes.
Now, do you recall specifically when I'm moving around, I apologize, but I want to go back to that Saturday evening. When you spoke with Tara, do you recall what time of day or night it was?
It was late because I had fallen asleep in the chair watching, I think it was the Alabama LSU game, I think it was, and I fell asleep. And we've been watching college football all day, and so I'm going to say 10 and 11-ish.
And when you spoke with Tara, was that on her cell phone or her home phone? Do you recall?
I want to say her cell phone, but I'm not 100%.
Do you recall when you spoke with Tara if at any point she indicated that she was not yet home that evening?
The understanding I got from her that night was that she was at home, and she said she was cold. It was cool.
Okay.
And she was at home.
What did that mean to you when she said she was cold or she was cool? Did you know what she meant by that?
She just said it was cool out and she was cold.
Okay. Prior to that last time that you spoke, do you know what Tara had been doing throughout that day?
She had a pageant that she did.
Okay.
She, I know she was doing some girls' hair pageant because I called and one of the little girls answered the phone.
Okay.
And she said, Tara's in the shower, she'll call you back as soon as she gets out. And Tara called me while she was at the pageant.
Do you recall if Tara ever indicated if she went by Troy Davis's house that evening for a barbecue or a cookout?
Yes.
And do you recall if you actually spoke with her while she was there?
Yes.
When Tara, and obviously we heard your messages, but did Tara ever tell you that she loved you?
Yes.
Would it be unusual for Tara to end a phone call with you to tell you that she loved you too?
Yeah.
That would be unusual or would
No,
not?
it would not be unusual.
Okay. I believe that's all the questions I have at this time.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's about an hour and a half since we've started back after lunch. Let's take a brief bathroom break. Y'all will adjourn to the jury room. Be right back with you. Mr. Dykes, you're welcome to step down if you want to do what you want to do.
I'll take you over one orders.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Where'd I get it from?
I'll get Bailey to
Okay.
get it before they got me in the room back. Ms. Watkins, can we have the water, please? Be in recess about 5 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. You to join us, please. You got your hands on all the exhibits you need? Good job. You know, I've been doing this for a while, and I finally discovered there's no such thing as a 5-minute recess. I don't think it's always longer. All right, at this time, Mr. Merchant, you can undertake your cross-examination.
Captain Dykes, my name is John Merchant. I represent Ryan Duke. We've spoken previously, but it's good to see you today.
Yes, sir.
At the time that you went to Tara's house that night, that Saturday night, how many years had you been working as a law enforcement officer?
The night I went to her house, what's back 15 years, so 15 years. I'm right at almost 30 years now, so 14 years.
At that time, were you a captain?
Yes,
Did you have leadership responsibility at the Perry Police Department?
yes,
So were you instructing other law enforcement officers on how to do their job?
yes, sir.
Okay, and part of that was how to do a scene investigation?
Yes, sir.
Had you provided any sit-down training, or was it all field training for these officers?
Most we have an FTO program, which is Field Training Officer Program in our department. When an investigator comes to the Criminal Investigative Division, and it's usually a 3-4 month program that they shadow with another detective to learn the ins and outs.
And so you were the person whom they shadowed in order to learn how to do their job?
No, usually it's a more senior detective is usually who they do it.
But you were well versed in scene investigation techniques at the time that you went to Grinstead's house that night?
Yes,
And you drove 1 hour and 20 minutes one way to get there, is that right?
yes, sir.
Fair to say that before you even got to her house, you were very concerned for her and her safety?
Yes,
And the point of you going there was to try to figure out whatever you could about what had happened and why she wasn't responding. Is that
right,
fair?
correct.
You had left her several messages by the time you got there.
Yes, sir.
When you got to her house, did you park directly behind her car?
I did.
All right, I think I have it up. This is State's Exhibit 40. You can take a look at that. So when you got out of your car, did you go directly to the front door?
Yes,
And then you left the front door porch area and went back to the carport. Is that correct?
went to the front door, knocked on the door, which caused the dog to start barking. I walked back towards the carport area because there's a chain link fence the dog was in, and looked under the carport, didn't see any lights under the carport, then calmed Dolly down, and then came back and knocked on I put my hand on the hood of the vehicle, back of my hand, just laid it on the hood, and it was cold.
So when you left the carport area, is that when you went back across the front to Miss Grinstead's master bedroom window?
Right. Well, actually, if you're looking at this picture here, and I reckon the best way to describe it, looking at it, the far left window that you can see is the window I could see the ambient light in, like a computer screen is the best way to describe it, like a screensaver that was on a computer. And it was, and I couldn't tell which room it was coming in, but it was dim light. And I knocked on the window.
But that was, as the picture that we're looking at, is that on the right-hand side of the house?
No, it's on the left hand.
The left-hand side?
Yes, sir.
What I'm trying to figure out, sir, and I'll show you State's Exhibit 41.
Yes, sir.
And you mentioned that these stone pavers or whatever you had referred to them, these are the walkway up to her front porch, correct?
That's correct.
And the specific item that the state referred to is the glove, right?
Correct.
And the glove was white.
Yes.
How many times did you cross over this area of the yard while you were investigating what was going on at her house?
Once going to the house and once going back to my car.
So 2 times you crossed over that area?
That's correct.
Fair to say you were trying to be alert to see if there's anything unusual in the yard?
Yes.
Did you, and I guess from your statement, you mentioned you didn't see anything unusual outside the house, right?
Did not. There was a jack-o'-lantern that was lit up on the front porch. And that's the only thing specific other than Dolly that I remember seeing.
And I guess, are you still of the opinion that you would have noticed the glove if it had been there?
You know, I think when getting out of the vehicle, I was so fixated on the house when I was walking to it, you know, focused on getting to the door, to knock on the door to see if she was there. When I saw her car there, I was kind of, okay, she's here. Car's here. She's here. And went straight, you know, just kind of, I reckon, lack of a better word, tunnel vision, straight into the front door. That was the first place I went, straight up to it. You know, I really wasn't at that point in time looking around for items or looking at that point. I was just trying to get her to the door to make sure she was okay. Now, I think I was on the phone when I walked back to the car with Miss Faye, getting opinion that I need to get Mr. Joe up to come over, because I think she thought Mr. Joe had a key.
Okay, so your testimony is that you walked over that area twice.
Yes, sir.
And you can't say one way or the other whether you would have noticed it.
I can't. I did not see the glove.
May I approach, Judge?
Sure.
Mr. Dykes, do you recognize that document?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a GBI report. It's the report of my interview.
Okay. Does it appear to be a complete and accurate copy of the interview summary that you gave?
It does.
Can I turn your attention, sir, to page 8 of 14?
8.
8, yes, sir, 8 of 14.
Okay.
At that time, you told the GBI there were no other vehicles at the residence, nor did he see any glove in the yard, which he thought he would have noticed had one been there.
That's correct.
Still true?
Yes.
So I put up on the screen there what we marked as Defendant's Exhibit 1. Do you see that?
I do. It's the front door.
Front door to what, sir?
Tara Grinstead's house.
And do you see an upper lock on that door?
The additional lock?
Yes.
Is that what you said? Yes, sir. I do.
And what kind of lock is it?
A chain link?
Is it a lock that can only be locked from the inside?
Yes, a lock. Yes.
How long were you on at her house before you left?
10 to 15 minutes max. Maybe not that long.
And on the photo there, sir, hanging the photo, hanging
Okay.
on the door handle there, can you tell what that is?
It's like chimes, like a.
The chimes are designed to alert Miss Grinstead when somebody opens the front door.
Correct.
Judge. I've already shown this to the state. So you may or may not recognize this. You had talked about on a direct exam about an area where the other door was located. Do you recognize this document?
I don't.
Fair enough. Sir, did you have an occasion to talk with Miss Grinstead about anything she was fearful of?
She was in fear. She was, one of her biggest fears was somebody coming in her house and getting her.
Was that true in October of 2005?
Yes,
In fact, when we spoke, you mentioned that was her greatest fear, wasn't it?
that's what she had told me.
So if that was her greatest fear, knowing Miss Grinstead the way you did, do you have an opinion one way or the other as to whether or not she would have locked that upper lock when she was at that house?
At night, I would think she would, in my opinion.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
You read your open, sir?
Do you ever have an indication that she's been denied Ms. Grinstead?
No,
So your indication that she was in fear of other persons, is that based on what she told you?
she told me that.
Did Ms. Grinstead ever talk to you about Marcus Harper?
She did.
And when Ms. Grinstead would talk to you about Marcus Harper, would it be fair to say that she indicated to you that he was abusive?
Correct.
When Ms. Grinstead talked to you about Anthony Vickers after that incident occurred, did she ever admit to you that she had a sexual relationship with Anthony Vickers?
She did not.
In fact, did she specifically deny having a sexual relationship with him?
She did.
Did Ms. Grinstead ever talk to you about Rhett Roberts?
Yes.
And when she spoke with you about Rhett Roberts, did she ever indicate to you whether or not they dated?
I think she did say that they had gone out before.
Do you recall Ms. Grinstead talked to you about her concern for Rhett Roberts and how she wanted to help him?
She did.
Would it be fair to say that Ms. Grinstead wanted you to have very specific ideas about things going on in her life?
Yes.
Other than what Ms. Grinstead told you, however, did you have any personal knowledge of any of those things?
No.
The evening that on Saturday, when you spoke with her and you said that she was initially down or upset, I apologize, I don't recall your words. Do you recall why it was that she was upset?
I don't know, other than, I was thinking maybe because I was with my friends doing stuff and then she was down in Ocilla with her friends doing stuff.
Okay.
I mean, that's only my guess. She didn't come out and say that that's what the case was, but she seemed, just distraught.
So let me ask you this, and again, I apologize, I know it's probably a touchy subject, but was Ms. Grinstead jealous when you would spend time with your wife and your family and not her?
No, she was,
Do you
Number
recall, I apologize, and I can let you look at your report, the summary of your report, but it looks like you still have it in front of
Right.
you. Do you recall indicating to law enforcement that the reason she was down that night was because you got to stay at your house with your family and she had to go to somebody else's house?
Yes, I did. Yes, that's correct.
And in order to make her feel better, what did you do? After you spoke with her on the phone and she was down, in order to make her feel better, what did you do?
I called her back and just was cutting up with her.
Did that seem to make her feel better?
It did.
Did Miss Grinstead like attention?
She did.
Do you have any knowledge as to whether or not Miss Grinstead was actually fearful in her home, or perhaps she just wanted you to believe that?
The only thing she had ever mentioned to me about Marcus had come over uninvited several times, would just stop in and just come over. and that she didn't like it when he did that because unannounced, and
Did she ever tell you that she had actually gone to Marcus's house and beat on his window until he came to the door to talk to her?
No, she never mentioned that to me.
Did she ever tell you that just a few weeks before she went missing that she completely broke down on the side of the road because she found out Marcus was dating someone else?
No.
Did she ever tell you that she broke down and was so distraught that Marcus's stepmother and father had to actually come get her and take her away from, or take her back to her residence?
No, I didn't know any of that.
So I go back to, would it be fair to say that she wanted you to believe that she needed protecting from Marcus?
That'd probably be fair to say.
What about, would it be fair to say that she wanted you to believe that she needed protecting from Anthony Vickers?
Yes.
If you learned that in fact she had a sexual relationship with Anthony Vickers, would that have changed your opinion as to the situation?
Mine and her situation, most definitely.
Well, her alleged fear of Anthony Vickers on that evening. If you knew that she was actively in a sexual relationship with him, would that have made you see the situation differently?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know if she actually had Anthony Vickers' phone number saved in her cell phone under the name Tony?
No.
Would that surprise you?
Yes.
And on the evening that you went to Tara's home, evening into the early morning of Monday, what was your primary focus?
Repeat that, please.
What was your primary focus?
On what was the
When you
date?
were when you went to her home on the evening, Sunday evening into Monday morning, what was your primary focus in going there?
To locate her, to make sure she was okay.
And were you looking for evidence of a crime, or were you looking for her?
Looking for her.
When you checked the hood of the vehicle, why did you check the hood of the vehicle?
To see if she just pulled up before I got there.
Okay. And if the vehicle had been warm, would that have been an indication to you that perhaps she was inside ignoring you?
Yes.
Seen that.
What would, if the vehicle had been warm, engine running, what would that have meant to you?
That she was probably at home or in the area.
And other than Ms. Grinstead being down that evening about the two of you being apart, did she seem in any way different from any other time?
No.
And when you gave her the attention she was seeking that evening, did it seem to change her attitude or her disposition?
It did.
I don't have any further questions.
Any follow-up, Mr. Murphy?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Dykes, thank you for your testimony, sir. You're welcome to stay or go. I'm going to release you at this time. The only thing, please don't discuss the testimony you've given to this jury this afternoon with any other witness in the case until the case is concluded, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. Have a good day, sir. You'll be excused at this time. Call your next witness.
Second call, Joe Fortier.
Good afternoon, sir. Yes, sir. This is it right here. Step up there before you're seated. Mr. Fortier, if you'll raise your right hand for me, please.
Okay.
You swear or affirm the evidence you're going to provide in the trial of this case is going to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. If you'll give your attention there to Ms. Hart, she'll direct your testimony.
Let me get you to introduce yourself to our jurors, please, sir.
Okay, I'm Joe Fortier.
And Mr. Fortier, what county do you live in?
I live in Irvin County, 376 Magnolia Road, Osceola, Georgia, Irvin County.
How long have you lived at that particular residence?
About 12 years.
I'm going to scoot back here. Thank you. I'm going to turn this down so the jurors can see you, sir.
Okay.
Back in 2005, were you living at that same residence?
No, ma'am.
Where were you living in 2005?
343 Park Street, Osceola, Georgia.
And where is that in connection to this particular, to the courthouse? How far away is that?
About 3 blocks in that direction, I guess. I don't know what direction I'm sitting in. Yeah, west.
Okay. Who else lived with you at that residence on
Pardon?
Park? Who else lived with you at that residence on Park?
My wife,
What is your wife's name?
Myrtle.
Now, Mr. Fortier, you're a gentleman, so I can ask you this. How old are you?
Next month I'll be 80.
Your wife, Miss Myrtle, is she still living?
Yeah, but she's in the nursing home. Been there about a year.
Okay. And is that because of physical issues or something else?
No, mentally.
Okay. What is Miss Myrtle's memory like at this point?
I didn't hear you.
Sorry, what is Miss Myrtle's memory like at this point?
It's not.
Okay. Does she recognize you when you go to see her?
I believe she does, because she calls me Papa.
Okay. What about your children? Does she recognize your children?
No, Walter went out there yesterday and she didn't recognize him.
Did you know someone by the name of Tara Grinstead?
I did.
How did you know Tara Grinstead?
She was my next door neighbor.
Okay. How long did Tara live next door to you and Miss Myrtle?
I'd say 3 or 4 years.
And did you know her before she moved into that house next door to you?
I knew her of her a little bit.
Did you know Mr. Billy and Miss Connie Grinstead when they lived here?
I knew of them. I wasn't really familiar with them that much, but I knew them.
Now, Mr. Joe, do you work still?
I do, every day.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm with the CPA firm in Osceola.
And how long have you worked at that particular CPA firm?
60 years.
And the same one?
Same work, same one.
What's the name of that CPA firm?
It's changed several times, but now it's just me, CPA.
What do you do with that CPA firm?
Do audits and do taxes, mainly taxes.
And would you have been working, I guess, at that same place in October 2005?
I was.
When Tara moved in next door to you and Miss Myrtle, were you just neighbors or did you get to know each other? What was the nature of your relationship?
Well, after a while, after she moved in there, she was, in and out of our house, and she become nearby like our daughter. Because we saw her a lot more than we did our own kids.
Yes, sir. Would you say, did you see her, how many times a week? How many times a week did you see Tara?
About every day.
Do you know if back in 2005 if Tara had a cell phone?
I gather she did.
Okay. Did you have a cell phone in 2005 that you can remember?
I did.
What about a house phone? Did you and Miss Myrtle have a house phone?
Yes, we did.
And then did you have a phone at your office as well?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to test your recollection. Do you know what your your office number was back in 2005?
Yeah, same one it is now.
And what's that?
468-7475.
Okay. What about your cell phone? Do you know what your cell phone number was back in 2005?
I'm not sure what's the same number I got. I think it was. I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, what number do you think it was? If you don't know, it's okay.
I don't really know. I mean, now and then, I hate to give it out, but it's 424-5255 now.
Well, you already told us where you live, so I figured you were okay with your cell phone going out. What about your house phone back in 2005?
It was 468-5729.
Okay. Would Tara have known all of those phone numbers for you to be able to get in touch with you?
Yes,
And did you have Tara's home phone back then?
I'm sure we did.
Now, want to direct your attention to October 22nd, 2005. Do you recall the Sweet Potato Festival pageant going on that day?
I did.
And how do you recall that particular pageant?
Well, they was having a beauty contest.
Okay. Was anyone you know in that pageant that evening?
My little granddaughter.
Okay. How old would she have been at the time?
She was about 8.
Did you ever go over to Tara's house that Saturday?
I did. Me and my son was building deer stands out at the farm, and when I come in for lunch, my wife told me Tara had been up morning to come over to her house and see Mary Beth with her hair and makeup.
And did you go see?
I did. I walked over there to see her.
And what was your reaction to that?
I told Tara I didn't like it.
Why didn't you like it, sir?
Well, it made her look like an 18-year-old and not an 8-year-old.
Okay. Do you recall if at any point that day Tara came to your house?
No, she come over before I got there and told my wife to tell me to come over and see Tara.
Okay. Now, after you left Tara's house that day, after you had seen Mary Beth, did you see Tara anymore?
No.
Did you speak with Tara anymore?
No.
You mentioned something earlier about being at your farm Saturday morning. Can you tell us a little bit about that, sir? What kind of farm do you have?
It's about 350 acres west of town.
And back in 2005, I know you said you were at the farm in the morning. Did you go back to the farm in the afternoon?
I went back after lunch and finished building deer stands.
What did you do after you finished building the deer stands?
Come back home.
Did you go to the Sweet Potato Festival pageant that night?
I did not.
Okay. Do you know, did your wife, Miss Myrtle, go to the pageant that night?
No, she didn't.
Do you recall at any point that weekend if you saw Tara's car home after you saw her at her house that afternoon on Saturday?
I don't remember looking. We're talking about 15 years ago. I know it was there that Monday morning.
Yes, you know what about Monday? I'm sorry.
I said I know it was there that Monday morning.
Okay. And how do you know it was there that Monday morning?
Well, we went over to the house after I got a couple of calls.
Okay.
Looking for her.
Now, sitting here today, do you recall who it was who initially notified you that they couldn't find Tara?
What, at the school?
Whoever, who was the first person who said something to you about not being able to find Tara that Monday morning?
The policeman from Perry, Georgia, Mr. Dykes, he had called me that morning before I went to work wanted me to go over there and check on Tara. He said he had come down that night, and that would have been Sunday night.
Yes, sir.
And he knocked on the door and knocked on the window, and they couldn't get her to come to the door or couldn't get her to answer the window. So he was concerned about her and wanted me to go and check on her because he knew we had a key to her house.
Yes, sir. Why did you have a key to Tara's house?
Tara had given it to my wife one weekend that she went off and forgot that she might have left some candles on. So she gave my wife a key so we could check on stuff like that for her. And then I would check on her cat and her dog.
Now, let me ask you this. I know it's been a while, but if there were missed calls on Tara's phone from Monday morning that showed they came from your office phone, do you know of anybody else in your office that would have been calling Tara that Monday morning?
I do not.
Okay. So if there are phone calls from your office to her house that morning, do you think that may have been you calling her?
No, because I never did go to the office that Monday morning.
Okay. So you don't think that if there were phone calls from your office to her home phone that morning, you don't think you're the one that made those?
That Monday morning?
Yes, sir.
No.
Okay.
What do you mean?
Do you know anybody else in your office who had a relationship or a friendship with Tara back in 05?
We had so many people that leave and come, and I don't know of any.
Okay. Let me see how you get this pulled up. I'm afraid I'm gonna need some more assistance. As you sit down, get your help for just a moment. Mr. Fortier, I'm going to play you an audio from State's Exhibit 20, and I'm going to ask if you recognize the voice on it, okay? Am I talking too loud for you? I feel like I'm screaming at you, but you can't.
No, I'm a little hard to hear anyway.
Well, I apologize to everybody else that I'm screaming.
Sunday, 11:44 p.m.
Not this one. Hold on.
I drove all the way down here at 12 o'clock at night. And he came on into a different cell up here. I was very considerate of you today. Monday, 12:04 a.m. Monday, 12:27 a.m.
Here's this message. She was calling me back, trying to call you all afternoon and all night. I haven't been able to connect, so I've been worried. Just wanted to give you a call. Thanks.
Okay, I'm going to stop it right there. Could you hear that last voicemail message, or that last message?
Yeah.
And I know it's been a while, but did you recognize that voice?
I don't.
Okay. Now I'm going to skip forward, see if I can get to the right spot.
31 a.m. Hey, just gonna get on this one there.
What about that voice? Do you recognize that voice?
I don't.
You don't recognize that voice. Okay. So you don't know if that's your voice on that phone?
No, it wasn't me.
That wasn't you that we just heard. Okay. So you don't recall calling Tara that morning at her house?
No.
Fair enough. So tell us, after you got a phone call from Keith Dykes, what did you do, if anything?
Of course, I told him I wasn't going over to her house unless I found out that she wasn't there.
Yes, sir.
So I called Bobby Connor, who was principal of school at the time,
Yes, sir.
on his cell phone, and he was out of town. I think he was in Atlanta at a school meeting.
Yes, sir.
But he got in touch with somebody over at the school for me and found out that her class didn't have her teacher in it. And she weren't at school and reported at school.
So when you found out that she had not made it to school that morning, what did you do, if anything?
I called my wife at the nursing home and told her to come home.
Okay.
Something was wrong with Tara's house, and we needed the key to get in. So she come on home and got the key.
Is that the kind of, was it normal for Tara just not to show up to work?
I wouldn't think so.
Had you ever known her not to show up to work before without calling in?
I'm sure she wouldn't.
Okay. Now, Did Miss Myrtle come home and get the key for you?
Yes.
Did you wind up going into the house, Tara's house that morning?
Yeah, me and my wife and I believe we was joined with maybe Larry, Harper, and Dina. We all went in the house.
Okay. Now, who are Larry and Dina Harper?
Well, Larry was Marcus's daddy, and he's deceased now.
Yes, sir.
And Marcus was her old boyfriend.
Now,
And Dina was a principal at one of the schools over there.
who was the first person to walk in Miss Grinstead's house that morning when y'all went over there?
Me.
And what door did you go in to her house?
The what?
What door did you use to walk into
The front
house?
door.
The front door. Where did you go after you walked in the front door?
Well, we just kind of went up looking,
Okay.
trying to find her.
Now, I know this is probably a silly question, but I have to ask it. Did y'all find Miss Grinstead that morning?
No.
Do you recall, and again, I know it's been a long time, but do you recall if you ever looked in her vehicle?
Not at that particular time, because we were looking for a key.
Okay. Now, at any point, did you see a glove in the yard?
Yeah, after we found that she wasn't in the house, I walked back out on the porch and called our chief of police, Billy Hancock.
Yes, sir.
I was on the city council at the time, and I had his cell phone number, and I called him on the cell phone and was telling him what was going on there, that we couldn't find Tara.
Yes, sir.
And that's when I noticed the glove out there and about 5 feet off her front porch. And of course, Billy, or Mr. Hancock,
Yes, sir.
he come right on, him and a couple of policemen come right on there to her house.
Yes, sir.
And when they got out of the car and walked up, I told Billy he might want to bag that glove.
Yes, sir. Now,
And I told him there was a couple of cigarettes butts, 2 over there by her car that he might want to get.
okay. Judge Matt, approach the witness. Sure. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 42 and ask you if you recognize that.
Yeah,
How do you recognize that?
that's the glove that was laying there in her yard.
Okay. And is that a true and accurate depiction of what it looked like that morning when you first saw it?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time I would move to tender State's 42 into evidence.
Any objection? Submitted without objection. Thank you, State 42. You'll help us with our screen, please, Mr. Watson. Thank you.
If I do this right, the glove's going to show up on the screen in front of you.
Ladies and gentlemen, y'all see that exhibit?
So looking at State's 42, again, is this what the glove would have looked like when you saw it that morning? That screen right in front of you?
Yes.
Did you touch that glove?
No.
Now, I'm also going to show you what's already been entered into evidence, State's 41. Whoop, that's loud. Can you see the glove in this picture?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you first walked over from your house to Tara's house, did you see that glove laying out in the yard?
I did not when I walked over. I wasn't looking. I was, had my mind on finding her over to her house.
And show you State's 40. Do you know what you're looking at in State's 40? It's kind of dark, but can you see what you're looking at?
Yes.
Okay.
That's in front of her house.
That was her house. Looking at State's 40, which side did you live on?
On the right.
So it's backwards, so if I get my right and left wrong, apologize. But is that going to be this side?
Yes.
Okay. So when you walked over, do I understand that you would have walked from essentially the front of your house to her front door?
Yes.
And the glove, would it have been laying in essentially this area right here?
Yes.
Okay. And when was it that you did notice the glove, since you didn't notice it when you first got there?
When I was standing on the front porch calling Billy,
Wow.
just looking around, I saw her.
Did I just hear you say you were sitting, like you sat down on the porch when you
No,
called Chief?
I'm standing.
Standing, okay, just want to make sure if I heard you right.
I don't think she had any chairs out on her porch.
Okay, well, I didn't know you could have sat on the steps, I was just wondering. Now, did the chief arrive? Did Chief come over once you called him?
Yes,
And did you allow them to go into Tara's house? I mean, you have the key, right?
yes.
When you were in Tara's house, did you open any drawers in her house? Like bedroom drawers?
No, I didn't. No drawers.
Yes,
No.
Okay. Did you touch anything in the house that you can recall?
I'm sure we did. Probably touched everything.
Okay. What about the front door when you walked in? Did you have to open the front door to go in? Touch it?
Yeah, it's locked.
No, you said it was locked. So I'm going to show you. Let's see if it's up here. Yes. This is actually Defense 1. Do you recognize what you're looking at there, sir? It's okay if you don't.
Not really. I mean, it just looked like a lock.
Okay.
The
So
door.
I'm going to point you up here. Can you see what I'm pointing at there on the door?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? What does that appear to be? Make you put your glasses on.
I don't know.
Okay. So let me ask this a little differently. Do you even recall sitting here how many locks Tara had on her door?
I thought she had the one, the entrance.
Would that be this one down here?
Yeah,
Okay. So do you even remember any locks other than this one?
that's the only one I remember. That's the only one I had done locked to get into the house anyway.
Do you ever recall having acknowledged that Tara would have used any other lock when she was home alone other than the one we just looked at?
No, I wouldn't have any idea.
We'll talk to you a little bit about Tara's dog. Do you know if Tara had a dog?
Yes,
And do you recall that dog's name?
Dolly.
Dolly. Do you remember anything specifically about Dolly from that weekend that Tara went missing?
Not really. My wife said she heard Dolly barking that night more than usual.
Yes, sir. Did you hear it though?
I'm a little hard of hearing anyway. When I go to sleep, I'm usually asleep.
Okay. Now, do you recall seeing Dolly on Monday morning when you went to check Tara's house?
Yes.
And where was Dolly at the time?
She was in the backyard, fenced in the backyard.
Did you find anything odd about that?
No, because usually that's where she stayed most of the time.
Okay.
Tara would let her in the house once in a while, but not too often.
Yes, sir.
Because she had a cat in the house.
Okay. Tara did?
Named Herman Talmadge.
Okay. And other than Tara not being there, did you notice anything unusual about her house that morning?
Not really, just stuff, with 30 girls in and out of that house.
Yes, sir.
Clothes, thrown around, make jewelry thrown around, left around.
Now, I asked you this earlier, but I want to go back to that. After you didn't find Tara in the house, do you recall if you ever looked in Tara's car?
Yes, I think Larry Harper found a set of keys.
Okay.
And I don't know why we wanted to look in the trunk. We wanted to open the trunk and look.
Yes, sir. To your recollection, though, sitting here, do you recall if her car was locked or unlocked that day?
I don't.
But now you just mentioned a second ago about Mr. Larry Harper. Do you have a recollection of him specifically looking for keys?
Why was he looking?
You just said that he was looking for keys. So my question is, do you remember that? Do you remember him looking for the keys to her car that morning?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you recall if you found anything on Tara's door when you got there that morning?
No. Whoa, let me back up. I did find a note.
A note. Do you recall who that note was from?
Yeah,
Who was that?
from Mr. Dykes.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 43, looks like. Get you, and actually we'll take it out so you can take a look at it better. Ask you to take a look at that for me.
Yes.
Do you recognize that?
Yes.
How do you recognize that?
That was what was on her door.
Okay. And when you say her, whose door was that?
Terrace.
What did you do with that particular card after you found it that morning?
I don't know where I give that to Billy or who I might have given it to. I give it to somebody.
I'm going to show you the back of that particular item. Can you see that on the screen in front of you?
Yes.
And can you read that for us, please?
I come to see you. You are something me worried about you, making me worry about you.
Okay. Is this the note that you found that day?
Yes.
By the time you found this, had you spoken with Captain Dykes or had you not spoken with him?
No, he called me before I actually left the house that morning.
Okay.
And I had told him that he had told me he had come down and knocked on the door that night.
That Sunday, before the Monday we've been talking about, I'm going to talk about that Sunday a little bit more. Were you home that Sunday? The Sunday before y'all reported her missing, were you home?
The Sunday before,
Yes, sir.
I'm sure I was.
Okay. Do you have any specific recollection sitting here today about anything unusual that Sunday?
15 years ago, I don't know. We spent a lot of time out at the farm on
Yes,
the weekend. I built a swimming pool, and I had what I call my barn.
Yes, sir.
With big screen TV, a kitchen and a bathroom and so forth. We had parties out there.
Yes, sir.
We'd spent a lot of weekends out there, and I could have been out there.
So again, sitting here today, do you recall anything unusual about that Sunday? No. And sitting here today, do you even know if you were home that Sunday?
That's right.
May I have just a moment, Judge? I believe that's all the questions I have right now. Thank you.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Fortier. My name is John Merchant. I represent Ryan Duke. We met briefly before you testified today, but I have a few additional questions for you, okay? So let's start where you ended. You said you didn't recall what you were doing Sunday. Would a summary of the GBI interview that you gave assist you in refreshing your recollection? Yeah, approach, Judge. Sir, if you want to turn to page 9.
Let's see where the pages are numbered.
At the bottom left, sir.
Yeah, I got it.
Can you read that highlighted portion to yourself and see if that refreshes your recollection? You let me know when you're done, sir.
I'm trying to figure out if this is Sunday before.
If you look at the first sentence of that paragraph, does that assist you in refreshing whether it was the Sunday we're talking about here? 23rd?
Okay.
So did that assist you in remembering,
It's-
sir?
I really don't. But I guess if it's I know I did go to Lowe's and buy a new lock.
Hold on, sir. Let me go ahead and ask you some questions now.
Okay.
If that refreshes your recollection a little bit.
Okay.
So did you go to Lowe's that day?
Yeah, that afternoon. Yeah.
What time did you go?
It must have been after at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
It looks like you went to work on some deer stands that evening. Is that true?
Yeah, we worked on deer stands.
And you were working on those until about 7:30 or 8 o'clock at night, right?
Yeah, probably.
So as you sit here, the best estimate as to when you might have gotten home from doing all that, so right around 7:30 or 8 o'clock.
Probably, yeah.
So based on that, is it fair to say you really don't have any knowledge about people coming or going from Miss Grinstead's house during the day or in the evening on Sunday?
That's right.
So you had the only spare key to her house, right?
Pardon?
You had the only spare key to Miss Grinstead's house?
Yeah, my wife did. I guess that was on the spare key. We had one anyway.
And when you got to the front door was locked.
Yes,
When you put the key in, you were able to unlock the door and walk in the house.
right.
You didn't have to pry it open, push it open, break anything like that.
Mm-mm.
Did you see any signs of forced entry on the door casing at all?
Of course, I wasn't looking, but I didn't see anything.
That's probably
That-
something that would have jumped out to you.
That would have jumped out.
You also had indicated you couldn't remember if Miss Grinstead's car door was unlocked. Is that
I don't remember, but I don't think it was locked.
And that's what I was going to ask you, sir. If you had a specific memory of whether it was locked or not locked when you opened the door into the car.
I don't
You don't remember.
remember, but I just don't think it was locked.
Well, let me go ahead and just turn your attention to page 11, sir, of this. Same summary. In the last paragraph, sir, of that, it's in the 4th line from the bottom. If you want to read that to yourself silently and tell me if that assists you in remembering.
I don't remember unlocking the trunk.
Well, let me ask you this, sir. Does that refresh your memory as to whether or not the car door was
Yeah.
unlocked? It does. Okay, you can put that away now, sir.
Yeah.
So, having refreshed your memory now by looking at this, was the car door unlocked or locked?
Must have been unlocked.
And to you, that was odd, correct?
Yeah.
She always locked her car door?
I thought she did.
And so when you went inside, there was no evidence and you didn't see anything that suggested there had been any kind of struggle inside the house?
Other than a bunch of girls in and out of her house that day.
Right. And from what I understand, it was, from what you could see, it was pretty consistent with a whole bunch of girls getting ready for a pageant on Saturday
Right.
morning. So did you have an occasion to talk with Tara about Anthony Vickers?
Do I?
Did you have a chance to talk with Tara directly about Anthony Vickers?
Yeah.
And it was a communication between you and she, personally?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the court reporter here needs you to answer so that she knows what you're saying. Every day we use those head nods and stuff, but, so you talked with her about Anthony Vickers?
Yeah, that was the only person she ever told me that she was afraid of.
And she did tell you she was afraid of Mr. Vickers?
Yeah.
And I guess there was an incident once at a baseball game that she got so scared that she never went alone again after that, right?
Right.
That she always asked you to go with her?
Right.
That's all I have, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any follow-up, Ms. Hart? Read the record.
Mr. Fortier, did Tara ever indicate to you whether or not she had had a romantic relationship with Anthony Vickers?
No, she did not. She was just being nice to him.
Okay.
Teacher.
So did she tell you that, or was that your assumption based on knowing her?
That was just my assumption. She never did say that.
Okay. Would it surprise you to know that Tara had his number saved in her cell phone?
No, it wouldn't.
Why is that?
Well, since he was a student, and I think he had some problems out at the private school and had to come back to the public school. And I think she was just trying to help him.
Okay. And that information, did you get that from Tara or from just hearing her around town, or do you know?
Just me.
Okay. Now, a couple of things, and again, I understand it's been a long time ago, but I do have some questions about, defense counsel just asked you some questions, so I want to ask you about the statement you gave back then. Do you recall, again, I know you were out at the deer stand, but on that Saturday, do you recall ever finding out if Tara came over to your house to visit with Miss Myrtle while you were gone?
That Saturday?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, she come over and told my wife for me to come over to see Mary Beth.
What about after that? Do you remember her having come over in the afternoon to see Miss Myrtle?
I think she come and sat with my wife a little while.
Okay. Now, when Tara would come over to your house, do you know if she normally locked her door or not?
I don't.
Okay. You also, on Sunday when you got home, you already talked to defense counsel about that, but do you recall if Tara's car was home when you got home that Sunday?
That Sunday?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was there.
Okay. Do you remember if it was daylight or dark when you got home that Sunday?
I don't. It's probably fixing to be dark.
I understand. Okay. Had you ever been in Tara's bedroom before that particular morning?
Hard to say. I don't know. I don't remember if I was.
Gotcha. I guess my question is, did you really have anything to compare it to? That particular day when you saw it on Monday morning, the way it was, did you really have anything to compare it to know how she normally kept it?
I don't.
Okay. And it's page 10 of the document you just sent to me. May I approach the witness, Judge? Sure. I'm going to show you that same document that defense counsel just showed you, the summary that law enforcement did from your interview back in 05. This particular paragraph, second paragraph on the page, let me get you to read down to the end of this sentence to yourself. And let me know when you're done, please.
If I may, in order to refresh his recollection, he's got to indicate he doesn't remember, and I don't know his question, and he said he doesn't remember.
I asked it on direct, Judge. It specifically relates to whether or not he went to work that day. I asked it multiple times.
Okay.
That Monday. Okay. Continue. Having read that, does that refresh your recollection about whether or not you actually went to work that Monday before you went over to Tara's house?
No, I never did go to work that morning.
Okay. So let me ask you this. Do you think your memory about what happened would have been better back in 05 or better now?
Probably been better in 05.
Okay. Understand, mine would be too. I believe that's all my questions.
Just brief follow-up, Your Honor.
Sure.
May I approach? I'm going to hand that back to you, sir, just in case you don't remember. Do you recall Tara Grinstead telling you that Anthony Vickers beat on the door to her house so hard that he left blood?
Yeah.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right. Any follow-up? Mr. Fortier, thank you for your testimony, sir. I'm going to excuse you at this time. The only thing I'm going to ask you is don't discuss the testimony you've given to this jury this afternoon with any other witness until the case is concluded, okay?
Okay. What if I wanted to leave town on a mini vacation?
I think that'd be fine.
Okay.
All right. Have a good day, sir.
You too, Judge.
Call your next witness.
State will call Tina Causey to the stand.
Miss Causey, please. Anybody need a stretch, go ahead and take it. You're more than welcome. Hold down, please, Miss Causey. If you'll step up right there, please. Before you're seated, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give in the trial of this case is going to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. If you'll give your attention to Miss Hart, she'll undertake your direct testimony.
Let me get you to introduce yourself to the jury, please, ma'am.
Hey, I'm Dina Harper Causey.
And you just identified that your name is Harper Causey, so let me ask you, were you ever married to Larry Harper?
Yes,
How long were you married to Larry Harper?
24 years.
And were you married to him in 2005?
Yes,
Is Mr. Harper still living?
no.
When did he pass away?
February of 2019.
Now, do you know someone by the name of Marcus Harper?
Yes,
How did you know Marcus?
he was my stepson.
And what about Tara Grinstead? Did you know someone by the name of Tara Grinstead?
Yes,
Now, are you retired or still working?
retired.
What did you retire from?
from education. I was a teacher, and then I was a principal, and then I was at the board office as an assistant superintendent.
In 2005, do you recall what you were doing?
Teaching
Teaching. What did you teach?
elementary, 3rd grade.
Goodness gracious. Okay. How did you get to know Tara?
My daughter was made it on the junior varsity cheerleading squad,
Yes, ma'am.
and although I had never been a cheerleader myself, after 2 tryouts I still failed. I just said, well, I'd love to just do what I can do with them, and
Yes, ma'am.
so that was the year that she started working over at the high school, I think, unless she came the year before. I had never met her before though, but she came through the gym one day and came over, and we were talking, and she said, well, I'd love to help you with the girls because I cheered in Hawkinsville, so
And did she wind up helping you coach
She did.
cheerleaders?
she did.
How long did she do that?
Well, I only did it for a year,
Okay.
so then she took over after that.
And what about Marcus? Do you know if Marcus knew Tara?
At that time, no, he didn't know her.
Did he come to know her?
Yes,
Do you know how they met?
I don't.
Guess my question is, did you introduce them?
No,
Okay. Do you know if Marcus and Tara Grinstead ever had a relationship?
yes.
And do you know how long it was that they dated?
Several years. I'm not sure how long that would be.
Now I want to direct your attention to October of 2005. Prior to Ms. Grinstead being reported missing, do you recall any incidences in which Tara became particularly upset about a situation with Marcus?
Yes.
And how did you find out about that situation in which Tara was upset?
Well, there was one incident when she called and was just really upset, and they had a talk, and some things had happened, and she was so upset. I just went over to, well, I tried to talk to her on the phone, and then I just finally just went over there to the house.
Okay. Do you ever recall a time in which you and Mr. Larry actually had to go pick her up from the side of the road?
Yeah, about I don't know, a week or 2, 3 later maybe. She was on her way home from class. She was working on her master's degree, I believe. Might have been a doctorate, I don't know. Anyway, working on an advanced degree. She was taking classes in Waycross at night. And she was on her way home from that class, and she called me on the phone and was extremely upset and was really just sounding incoherent. I just told her to stop driving
Yes, ma'am.
and pull over at the little airplane up there, and we'd come get her. So that's what we did.
At the time that incident occurred, that y'all had to go pick her up, do you know if she and Marcus were actually still in a relationship together?
I think he had broken it off or tried to break it off, and she was just extremely upset about it. Yeah.
Now, when you got to the location of where she had pulled over, who went with you to that location?
Larry and my granddaughter that we were keeping that night.
Okay. Was Tara able to drive home?
Oh no.
Who drove her car home?
Larry drove it home.
And when you got back to her house, had she improved any? Was she any more calm?
No.
What was she actually doing?
Crying, screaming.
Had you ever seen Tara act that way before?
No.
Did you or Mr. Larry enlist the help of anybody else to try to get her into her home that day?
We did.
Who all wound up being there to try and help get her into her house?
Well, we called Dr. Davis
Yes, sir.
because
Yes, sir.
he was good. He was close to her too, and then we got Joe because we couldn't find her house keys. So Joe Fortier
Yes.
had a house key we knew, so we called him to let us in. everybody just had to pick her up and try to carry her in.
When you left your house that day, had she calmed down at all?
No, maybe somewhat. She had cooled off some. Was so extremely hot when we got there. She had cooled off, but she was still crying and asking for Marcus and wanting me to call Marcus, and I just told her I just couldn't do that. Didn't want to get in anybody's business.
Do you recall if she ever called Marcus's mother that day, or if Marcus's mother came over that day?
I had heard, I think Marcus mentioned that, but I didn't know that except by what he said. So
Okay. So you didn't see Miss Nancy?
no.
Did Marcus ever come over that day? When you were there?
No.
And when Tara was so upset and screaming for Marcus, did she say what she was upset about? Was she explaining to you what had made her so upset?
Well, she had mentioned, she said it then, but had mentioned it a couple times before, is that I think they had dated like 6 or 7 years, and she, felt like she had given it all she had for 6 or 7 years, because I think she thought that, it was going to be a wedding.
Yes, ma'am.
And Larry and I both thought that too. We just assumed that was what was going to happen, but it just didn't work out.
How long before she was reported missing did that incident occur? Do you recall?
Maybe a week, 2 weeks, but about a week and a half, I think.
How was it that you became aware that Tara was missing?
I was at school, and Mr. Fortier called. I can't remember. He must have called Larry because I was in the classroom, and said that he had not seen her bedroom light on all day Sunday or Monday morning. It was not on, and her car was still under the garage. And so he just thought she must be sick, and we decided we would go check on her.
Before you went to check on her, were you familiar with whether or not she showed up for work that day?
She did not. Yeah, I can't remember if I knew it then or if it was when we got to the house.
But at some point did you find out she didn't show
Yes,
up?
she didn't show up for work.
To your knowledge, in working in the school system, had Tara ever failed to show up for work without calling in before?
Oh no.
How would you describe Tara as an employee?
Oh, she was very dependable. She was very conscientious about her job. She loved the kids and went far out of her way to make sure that she was doing good instruction. She was a good mentor for the children, other students. I guess they were high school. They weren't children like I taught. So.
Even with what I'm going to call drama that was going on with Marcus during that time period, did it ever seem to actually affect her ability to do her job?
Oh, no.
Did you go over to Tara's house that Monday morning?
Yes.
And when you arrived, do you recall who else was there?
Well, Larry, my husband, was there, and then Mr. Fortier had the key, and he had to let us in because we didn't have a way to get in.
Yes, ma'am.
Because she had an incident several weeks before that where she had just been sick,
Yes, ma'am.
and I went and to see about her. And
Now that incident where she was sick a few weeks before, did she miss school without calling in, or?
yes, she actually did. She had fallen asleep during the night because she'd been up most of the night and just overslept, but she was not able to go to work. So when I got there, I called the principal and told him she was too sick to come in.
Other than that, have you ever known her to not show
No.
up for work without calling?
No.
So that morning, did you go into the house?
Yes.
And where in the house did you go?
Well, we just went in the front door,
Yes, ma'am.
walked into the living room. I course, kind of turned to the right and went straight to the bedroom first to see if she was in the bed, and she wasn't.
Did you, I guess then, it sounds like you knew where her bedroom was in the house?
Yes.
Anything seem out of place to you in the house at the time?
Well, her bed was not made, or if it was made, it was shuffled, you know, so.
Did you find that unusual?
Well, given the fact that the girls had been there that Saturday night getting ready for the pageant, no, because I don't know how many she got ready, but.
At the other times that you had been to her house, did you recall if she normally made her bed?
Yes.
She did.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else that you noticed about the house that was unusual?
Well, there were clothes, you know, kind of laying around. There was some jewelry out. The phone that was, I can't remember if it was the kitchen phone or the bedside phone, but it was laying on the floor in the bathroom. And so, of course, like an idiot, I picked it up and was going to put it back on the headset, not thinking. But my husband quickly reminded me not to touch anything.
Okay. Did you wind up touching the phone? Or do you recall?
Well, I picked it up before I thought about it. I mean, I didn't think there was anything criminal going on. You know, I just was straightening up. I don't know.
And I guess to be fair, that Monday morning when you walked in there, did you have any idea that all these years later you'd have to testify about it?
No.
Now, do you recall seeing anything in the yard when you were at the house that day?
Yes.
What did you see in the yard?
Doctor's glove or medical glove.
Do you recall if you saw that when you first got there or not?
I actually remember seeing it as we were going up to the front door. Yeah.
Looking at, actually, I'm going to turn it back up for you, the exhibit on the screen. Say exhibit 40. Is this an accurate depiction of what the house looked like essentially that day?
Yes.
And was her vehicle home?
Yes.
Do you recall where you parked when you got there?
No.
Okay.
No.
Do you recall where anyone was parked when they got there?
Mm-mm.
No. Do you recall whether or not anyone ever checked Tara's vehicle that morning?
At some point during the morning they did. We didn't go out there. I think when the police got there, or I didn't go out there to see about the car. I don't know about anybody else.
Do you have any personal knowledge if Tara's car was locked or not locked that morning?
No, I don't.
Did you touch anything else in the house when you were there?
Yes.
Okay. Any idea sitting here what you may have touched when you were there?
The answering machine on her phone.
Okay. Why did you touch the answering machine?
Well, because it was blinking, and I thought, well, maybe I was trying to figure out where she would be, you know.
Yes.
And so I thought, well, maybe that was somebody calling, you know, leaving me. Maybe that would give me a clue.
And
I don't know. Just
were there
desperate to
messages?
find her. Yes.
I apologize. Did you recognize any of the people who had left messages that morning, or that were on there?
I don't recall that I recognized any of who the people were. There were.
And what about her caller ID? Did you ever look at that morning? I know you said you picked up the phone, but did you check her caller ID?
No, I didn't.
Do you recall if her cell phone was at the house or not? when you
It
got there?
was. It
And where
was.
did you see her cell phone?
I want to think maybe by the bed. It was plugged in charging. That was one of the first things that set off the alarm for me.
Why was that?
Well, just because we all carried our cell phones around with us, and
Even
so,
in 05 was surprising to you that she had gone somewhere without her cell phone?
yeah.
Now, did you touch the cell phone?
I don't think I did. I don't know. I don't think so.
Do you recall seeing anybody else touch the cell phone?
No.
Were you there when law enforcement arrived?
Yes.
Other than what you told this jury, did you do anything else at the house that morning?
I don't think so.
Want to change gears and go back to the Saturday before. So, talk about Monday. Let's go back to Saturday.
Okay.
Did you see Tara that Saturday?
I did.
Where did you see her?
I saw her across the street from my house at Dr. Davis's on his back patio. We were having a cookout.
Did you actually go to the cookout that night?
I did for a bit. I had to leave and go take my mom a plate when we finished cooking.
Do you remember if Tara arrived before or after you went to go take your mother a plate?
I can't remember because I had the baby too, so I don't know.
Wow.
I can't remember.
And I know it's been a long time ago.
Yeah.
But do you recall what Tara would have been wearing that evening at the cookout?
She had on, I know she had on a pair of jeans and a t-shirt, and either it was either a jacket or a sweater, a crocheted sweater or something, but there was an outer garment over the t-shirt.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 3A and ask you, does that appear consistent with what you saw her wearing that
Yes,
evening?
yes.
And then I'm also going to show you on the screen in front of you what's been entered into evidence as State's Exhibit 2. Are you able to see that on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
And again, would that be consistent with what you saw Tara wearing that evening?
Yes.
After you saw Tara at Dr. Davis's residence that night on Saturday, did you ever speak with her again?
No.
Did you ever see her again?
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
Any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor, briefly. Ma'am, when you walked up to the house, was the glove obvious to you?
Yes.
It stood out to you?
Yes.
Nothing further, Judge.
All right. Ms. Causey, thank you for your testimony, ma'am. I'm going to excuse you at this time. The only thing I'll ask you is don't discuss the testimony you've given to the jury today with any other witness in the case until the case is concluded, okay? All right, have a good day. You'll be excused, ma'am.
Thank you.
Call your next witness.
State will call Billy Hancock to the stand.
Y'all okay? Anybody need a break? All right, good afternoon, Chief Hancock. Appreciate your patience. Before you're seated, please raise your right hand. You swear or affirm the evidence you're going to provide in the hearing of this case is going to be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Give your attention, Ms. Harper.
Can I get you to introduce yourself to our jurors, please, sir?
I'm Billy Hancock. I'm Chief of Police of the City of Ocilla.
And how long have you been Chief of Police in Ocilla?
29 years and 10 months.
Are you what we would refer to as a post-certified law enforcement officer?
Yes.
And I take it based on the 10 months that you're counting down your days to retirement?
Seems to be.
Okay. I want to direct your attention to October of 2005. Were you Chief of Police at that time?
Yes.
And in October of 2005, how many officers would you have had working for you at Ocilla Police Department?
12.
Were those patrol officers, investigators, a little bit of everything?
We only had one investigator. The rest were patrol. And that was also including myself.
That was going to be my next question. With a department of that size, are there occasions in which the chief actually responds himself to calls of this nature?
Yes.
Prior to October 24th of 2005, did you know Tara Grinstead?
Yes, I did. She was a local school teacher, history.
Did you know someone by the name of Marcus Harper?
Yes, he was a former police officer for the Osceola Police Department.
Do you know if those two ever had a romantic relationship?
Yes,
And were they dating at the time he was working for you at the police department?
yes.
Now, on October 24th of 2005, when you responded to the house, did you have any personal knowledge as to whether or not they were still in a relationship?
I did not. I didn't know for sure.
How was it that you wound up at Tara's house on October 24th of 2005?
I received a telephone call from Joe Fortier, her next door neighbor, at about 10 minutes till 9 on that day.
And how do you remember what time it was?
I'm not sure. Maybe
Sorry, go ahead.
maybe I wrote it down or just remembered. I mean, nothing earth-shattering that made me remember that.
And when Mr. Fortier called you, was it on a cell phone, a house phone, a work phone?
I believe he called me from his cell phone. I'm not 100% certain.
And what about you? Did he call you on a cell phone?
I was on the cell phone, yes.
Where were you when he called you?
I believe I was standing in the parking lot of the Osceola Police Department.
What did you do when you received the phone call about Tara?
I drove to her house.
How long did it take you to get to her house at the time, from the time you had the phone call?
We were 6 or 7 blocks away, so not very long.
Had you ever been inside Tara Grinstead's house before that day?
Not that I remember.
And when you arrived on scene, who else was there besides Mr. Fortier?
There was Larry and Dina Harper and Mr. Joe Fortier.
Do you recall if Myrtle Fortier was present or not?
She was not there. I understood she had been there, but she was not there. That I remember.
That goes to my next question. When you arrived on scene, what was your understanding as to whether or not other persons had already been in the house that night?
I just remember that he told me that Larry and Dina was at the house and that she had not shown up for work.
Who had not shown up for work?
Tara had not shown up for work.
Did you enter into her residence that day?
I did.
Who was with you, if anyone, when you went inside the residence?
We all three met in the front living room.
Who's the three that went in?
Myself, Larry, and Dina.
What about Joe Fortier? Where
Joe
was he?
Joe Fortier was there.
And so I guess let me ask.
That's 4 of us.
Well, was anyone in the house when you got there, or did they all meet you outside?
I remember that Joe was on the front porch. I think that Miss Dina may have already been in the house, and I'm not sure about Mr. Larry, if he was standing outside or if he'd come on in. I know we all met in the living room.
When you all witnessed the living room, what did you do, if anything?
Just gathered information as to the whereabouts of Tara, what they already knew.
Did they seem to have a lot of information about where she had been in the last couple of days?
Not that I remember. I know that they knew that she had not shown up for school, and that Joe told me at some point that maybe there was a beauty pageant on Saturday, and that that was the last he had seen of her.
Now, did you ever see any evidence or anything that jumped out to you as evidence in the case when you were at Miss Grinstead's house?
I remember pulling up. Her car was parked under the carport. I remember getting out, walking up to the front of the house, and seeing the glove in her yard.
Okay. May I approach, Judge? Sure. I'm going to show you what's in Martin States Exhibit 44 and ask you if you recognize that.
Yes,
How do you recognize States 44?
that's the glove from that day.
Now, that picture, did you take that yourself?
No,
However, is that a true and accurate depiction of where that glove was located when you saw it on October 24th, 2005?
yes,
Did you ever touch the glove?
no.
Sit this up. Judge, at this time I would tender in evidence State's Exhibit 44.
Any objection? No objection. Thank you. That's admitted without objection. States 44.
May I publish that to the jury, Judge?
Yes.
Okay. Before I do that, let's look at States 40. Chief, can you tell us what we're looking at in States 40?
That's the front of Tara's house.
Okay. Now, you just mentioned pulling up. Do you recall where it was that you parked when you got to Tara's house that morning?
I remember, to the best of my memory, of pulling up in front of the house, almost like I would have been seeing what you see there.
Okay, so you would have...
I don't think I pulled in the driveway. I pulled down in the front of the house on the road.
So am I understanding you to say that essentially you think that the angle we're looking at in States 40 is consistent with having been taken from about where you were parked? Is that...
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So when you approached her residence, did you walk over up the driveway or did you just walk through the yard?
I think I walked through the yard. I remember walking up the pathway, seeing the glove pretty close to what I think was the last paver in the yard, about 2 feet off to the right of it.
Okay. And again, is that the glove that you've identified in States 44?
Yes.
Okay. We're also going to look at States 41 that's already been tendered into evidence. Do you recognize what's depicted there?
It's the same thing, just a different shot.
Now, you talked about walking through the yard. Do you recall if it would have been, sorry, it's backwards for me. So would it have been from this direction or would it have been from over here?
The first direction that you pointed.
Okay. And so when you walked up, you said you noticed the glove. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
Okay. But I want to make sure I ask this. You didn't collect the glove?
No, I did not.
Do you know who collected the glove?
Bill Bars.
Now, at the time that you arrived on scene, what did you know about why you'd been called that day?
The only thing I really knew that she had not shown up for work, and that she was not at the residence.
Okay. Do you recall whether or not Miss Grinstead had a cat?
Yes, I do.
Do you recall if you ever saw the cat that morning?
I believe that Joe was either petting the cat or putting the cat down. I think I remember the front door actually being open as I walked up to the house.
Do you recall if you saw a cell phone that was located in the house?
Yes. After we spoke in the front living room there, I did walk through the house, eventually making my way to the back bedroom, which was Tara's. I noticed that the cell phone was located on the nightstand beside her.
Do you recall if it was, I apologize, Chief, do you recall if it was plugged in charging or not?
I do. Well, I remember a cord hanging from it. I do not remember checking it to see if it was plugged in the wall. I didn't do that.
Do you recall if Tara had an alarm clock or a clock near her bedside table?
Yes, there was a clock that was kind of on the floor between the nightstand and the bed, maybe a little closer to the bed, if I remember correctly.
I'm going to show you what's already been admitted as State's Exhibit 25 and ask you, is that consistent with what the bedroom looked like that morning?
To the best of my memory, yes.
Okay. And the clock that you're talking about that was on the floor, which side of the bed would that have been on?
Be on the same side as the nightstand, if I remember correctly.
So over here?
Yes, closer to the bed though.
And was it plugged in? Best of your recollection?
Yes, I think it was.
When you were there, did Mr. Fortier give you anything that he had found at the residence that morning?
When he and I, after the brief time I was in the house, he and I walked outside to look around the house. While walking, I remember him giving me a business card that he had said was in the front door or on the front door. That business card belonged to Heath Dykes.
Did you know who Heath Dykes was at the time?
Yes.
How did you know who Heath Dykes was?
I remember him from a previous incident between involving Tara.
Okay. Now, to be clear, that previous incident, did you actually respond to Tara's home in relation to that incident?
No, I did not.
Did one of your officers respond?
Yes.
And any information that you have about that particular incident, would that be firsthand knowledge or something you heard from somebody else?
Something heard from somebody else.
However, having spoken with your officers or read the reports, is that where you had heard Heath's name before?
Yes.
Did you actually collect that card from Mr. Fortier yourself?
No, I did not. I told him to hang on to it, that somebody else would be getting the information from him at a later time.
Now, at any point, were any other law enforcement agencies called in to assist in this case?
Yes. After Joe and I walked through the yard, I remember calling for Detective Bars to come to the scene.
And you referenced him as Detective Bars. Who was that?
Detective Bill Bars.
Does he still work at the police department?
He does.
What's his current job with the police
He's
department?
currently a school resource officer.
At the time, however, what was his job assignment?
He was detective.
And did he arrive on scene?
He did just a few minutes after I called him.
How long had you been on scene when he got there?
Probably 10 minutes or less.
At the time that Detective Bars arrived on scene, were you involved in the investigation firsthand at that point?
No.
And then we talked about the GBI, I believe. Do you know when the GBI was called in?
I remember when Detective Bars came there, I remember him telling him what I had or what I knew of, and told him that we should call the GBI and so they could help us.
Now, did you, after that point, when the GBI is called in, essentially, who is the lead agency at that point?
They were.
And over the years that Ms. Grinstead was considered missing, any leads or anything that came in, would you have followed up on those yourself, or would you have turned those over to GBI?
Those would be turned over to the GBI.
At this point? That's all the questions. Actually, I apologize. That's not all the questions I have. What county was the residence that Tara Grinstead lived at located?
Irwin County.
That's all the questions I have at this
All right, Amy Cross?
Got you, Chief.
Hey,
So you saw the glove twice while you were on the scene.
yes, sir.
Once when you walked to the front door, and then once when you came back out onto the front porch.
That would be correct.
And as you told me, it stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yes.
It was pretty obvious.
It was very obvious.
When you entered the house, did you see any signs of forced entry on the front door?
I did not.
Did the house otherwise look normal to you?
Yes, based on what I was being told, I think it looked normal.
There was nothing that stuck out to you that would suggest it was a crime scene.
Nothing.
And you looked at the floor when you were inside the house, right?
I'm sure I did. I look down when I'm walking.
I'm so sorry.
It's all right.
You finish your answer, please.
No, I'm sure I look down. I look down when I'm walking or observing the.
And did you, at any point, did you observe any kind of blood at all, whether new, fresh, old, any of
No.
that kind of thing on any of the floors?
I did not.
You and I talked at some point in your experience. You used a thicker plastic card to try to pry a lock, correct?
Yes,
And you told me that was much thicker than a credit card, right?
it's somewhat thicker. Yes, sir.
And you told me it took you a few minutes to pry the lock. Is that correct?
Yes,
So is it fair to assume it would take a lot longer to do if it was even possible with a regular credit card?
it is possible.
Now, at some point in November of 2005, you came to learn about a search that was conducted in Fitzgerald Farms Orchard, right?
Yes,
And you learned that from the Irwin County Sheriff's Office?
yes,
And from what I understand, you don't remember exactly who told you that, but it was from your office.
right.
And was it a deputy in the Sheriff's Office?
I believe so.
And without telling me what was said to you, was your understanding that there had been a report of a body being burned in Fitzgerald Farms?
And to jump in and object, that would absolutely call for hearsay. If an understanding that he got from hearing someone else talk about this hearsay.
Well, I'm not asking him to disclose exactly what he said. As a law enforcement official, I'm asking him to report what was reported to him as part of the investigation.
Correct. You get the phone.
Your Honor, that's not what the evidence was. He said he overheard it from a deputy, not that it was reported to him, but again, an understanding, as has been asked, is asking him for hearsay.
I sustain that objection.
So did you ever come to learn that a body had been reported burned?
And Judge, I'm going to object again. Come to learn is going to be from hearsay. Unless he was present there himself, it's hearsay.
Unless he was present where?
Wherever he's talking about the location of Fitzgerald Farms. He's just said, did you come to learn? Again, he would have learned that from hearsay, based on what his testimony said.
Well, let me see if I can do it this way. Did you ever get a report from any Irwin County Sheriff's Office deputy or other employee reporting that there had been a body apparently burned in the Fitzgerald Farms orchard?
Do you mean like are you asking me about a written report, or are you asking?
Yes, sir.
I do know now that there was a written report. I'm not sure I knew that then.
Did you ever report the information you received in November of 2005 to any other law enforcement official?
No, I don't remember that.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Any follow-up? Ms. Harper?
Yes, Your Honor. When, in the days after Ms. Grinstead was reported missing, did press begin to come to the area?
Yes, lots.
And based on the amount of publicity that this case got in those days and weeks, did that affect the number of tips and information you were receiving at the police department?
Yes, I would say so.
In your years in law enforcement, had you ever seen that many tips, information, psychics, whatever it was, giving information on a case in Osceola, Georgia?
Absolutely not.
Would it be fair to say that it began to overwhelm your department?
We were definitely overwhelmed.
What about in your work with the GBI? To your knowledge, were they receiving the same amount of tips at that point?
I sustain that objection.
Do you have any knowledge as to whether or not the GBI was receiving tips?
Yes, they were receiving tips.
Okay. Do you know if it was the same amount you were receiving, less, more?
I would imagine it was more.
And the information that defense counsel has just asked you about, specifically a report from a deputy in Irwin County. Back in 2005, well, let me ask it this way. Sitting here today, do you have any recollection of seeing that report back in 2005?
No,
Do you have any personal knowledge of when that report was made, actually written?
No,
Do you have any personal knowledge as to when that report came to be in the case file of the Ocilla Police Department?
no.
The Ocilla Police Department case file, on this case, how large is that?
You mean a number of pages, or
However, whatever description you want to give us that describes how big it is.
there's 3 or 4 folders?
Okay?
There's maybe search information?
When you say folders, do you mean these little skinny folders?
Yes,
Okay. And you say you only have 3 or 4 of these?
maybe 5.
Okay. Everything that you recall receiving, was that turned over to the GBI?
To the best of my knowledge, yes.
That's all the questions I have.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. As you sit here today, sir, is there a report in the Ocilla Police Department's file indicating a report of a burned body in Fitzgerald Farms from November of 2005?
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you.
No further questions.
All right, Chief, thank you for your testimony, sir. You're welcome to stay, Joe. Whatever you'd like to do, you'll be released at this time.
Thank you.
But hang on just a second. Please don't discuss the testimony you've given here to this jury today with any other witness in the case until the case is concluded, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me see the lawyers up here. We're going to call it a day. The next witness might take a little while, so I don't want to run us past 5 too long. Your pads, please leave them in your chairs. Just turn them over if you want to. Nobody will bother them. Let me caution you again now before we break. Don't discuss this case with anybody. Don't allow anybody to discuss this case with you. If anybody approaches you and tries to talk to you about the case, please tell them you're serving on the jury and you cannot discuss it, and if you'll report that to us in the morning, I would appreciate it. Don't watch any news coverage, anything like that. Get on your computer and see what this attention's been drawn today, okay? Y'all have any questions? Back at the same pickup spot in the morning, about, 8:30, 8:40, something like that, so y'all can get here and we'll start at 9 o'clock in the morning. Y'all have a great night. Let's everybody remain in place while the jury leaves the courthouse. Thank y'all. Yeah, if you got anything in the jury room now, don't forget it. Close the doors. Or anything on the state we need to take up before we adjourn? The defense? Those of you in the audience, thank you very much. Y'all did exactly what I asked you to do as far as not being distracting or making noises. And that makes it a lot easier for me and, of course, less distracting for the jury. So thank y'all very much. We'll be adjourned till 9 o'clock in the morning. Thank you. Have a good night.